and welcome back to My Main Stitches. I'm Jeannie J. Thanks so much for joining me. We've been talking about adjustments for pants patterns. We've been making pajama pants, but these adjustments that we're making will apply across the board on any kinds of pants that you're making. So last time we talked about what I call the handy dandy pants pattern adjustment worksheet. Y'all have to excuse me with that term handy dandy. My girls growing up loved Blue's Clues, and so that's one of the phrases that stuck with me. So I call things handy dandy sometimes. So anyway, in talking about our handy dandy sequence chart, it is really helpful to have a checklist. I noticed that there were some things that I almost forgot. And additionally, the actual sequence of things that are listed in our book that we've been discussing called Singer Sewing Pants That Fit, that sequence really is starting to make sense for me, and I knew it would, and for all of us as we started to go through the process of making pants adjustments. But now I'm really starting to get it because I've done a few adjustments, and I see how it would really throw things off if that sequence was out of order. So instead of talking to you about it, I'm going to adjust the camera and we'll do a short video, and I'll tell you everything I've been doing and what would be our next steps. So thanks for joining me, and let's go. Hello, my dears. So we want to continue to talk about the adjustments for pants patterns. We chatted last time about our handy dandy pants pattern adjustment sequence, which is really helpful as a checklist to make sure that you're making adjustments on all of the pieces and all of the places that you want to. And last time we actually drew a line for our crotch depth adjustment and showed you how to fold the pattern to shorten that depth or to cut that line and extend it if we wanted to increase the length. So we did the front pattern piece and then the back pattern piece, and not noted on our sequence worksheet is the pocket. We want to go in and make that same exact adjustment on the pocket piece so that you can't see it out. It's a little outside of the camera there, but just making sure that our darts still line up and everything, or notches still line up with the pants pattern. And when we make that adjustment to the pocket, notice that we had to redraw our line, and I drew it somewhere in between that outer line and the inner line so that that would still be the same shape of the pocket. In fact, whenever we're making adjustments to our pants pattern pieces or any pattern piece, we want to honor the original shape of the pattern as much as possible, unless we just know that we are cutting it for our own unique personal curves. We're going to always adjust according to those original lines because that honors the integrity and shape and flare of the pattern. That's usually what we want, or we wouldn't have purchased the pattern. So, okay, today we're going to talk about lengthening or shortening lines for the length of the pants. And for me, I knew that overall I wanted my pants to be about 6 inches shorter than the final measurement of pants length. Now we've already taken, I know up here, 2 inches off of the length because I adjusted the crotch for a shorter crotch and comfort for my pajama pants. So down here, that leaves 4 more inches to come off of the length of the pants. And at the bottom, again, that's the sequence. That's us following our sequence here. Because we took 2 inches off here at the depth, crotch depth, I only need to take off 4 more on the legs. Had I not done crotch depth, I would take the full 6 inches off at the legs. But now I know that there are 4 inches left since I took off 2 inches up top. Okay, and you can see here where I've done exactly what our general directions recommended. I came down to the adjustment line for the shorten or lengthen line. I think you can see that clearly. And I literally took that line and folded up 2 inches. The reason I folded up 2 inches here is because I know once I fold up and I fold the pattern piece back down, that is going to be a total of 4 inches that has come off. This is a total of 4 inches. It's 2 on top of 2, which leaves that total of 4 inches that has been adjusted. Now, once that adjustment was made on the front piece and then on the back piece, I came in with what's called a hip curve ruler, which is kind of a, there, can you see it? It's a really fun ruler. I've always liked this ruler, but anyway, it's helpful to get those lines, once we've adjusted the lines to keep, again, the integrity of the original shape of the pattern. We want to come back in after we've made our adjustments and line those lines up and, you know, continue to keep the integrity of the line size that we are using. And sometimes it's easier to make that adjustment with the curved ruler. Okay, so yeah, so again, we're keeping the same shape of the pattern and just going with that flow. And then once we get those adjustments set, we are scotch taping everything down. And let me tell you, whoever invented scotch tape deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, because you can stick and unstick very carefully so as not to tear your tissue paper, but it's a really helpful tool at the cutting table. All right, what else do I want to talk to you about? The next adjustment would be the width adjustment. And remember, it's LWC, length adjustments, then width adjustments, then crotch adjustments, which would be wedges, and we'll talk about that last. For the waist and hips, again, I'm using this very basic pattern that has elastic in the waist, and I know that the final hip measurements for these pants, it's about 1 inch more than would be a normal allowance for my hips, but it's pajama pants, so I think that's completely appropriate. So I'm actually not going to adjust this pattern for waist or hips or knees, but if I were, it would be a similar line as to the one that we made up top to adjust the crotch length. What we would do is come down to the outer seam line of our pants pattern, and then come in about 3 inches and draw another line that's parallel with our grain line. For instance, like that's our grain line. We would come in from our outer edge and draw a line kind of about 3 inches in, parallel with this grain line. And that is where we would, you know, if we were extending or opening up the hip width, we would cut that line and pull the pattern piece out a little bit. Or if we were decreasing the hip width, we would just make that fold right there. We'd cut at this same line here that we made for our crotch adjustment and just fold the pattern in a little bit if we were decreasing the hip width. Similarly, if we were increasing or decreasing the waistline, if these did not have elastic in the waist, we would use what are called darts to kind of fold that piece in and make that adjustment for the waistline, which we're not going to do that. Again, it's elastic. But that is how we would make that adjustment for waistline. If we were extending or expanding the waistline, again, we know that we would cut in that line and pull that piece up top out. And after those adjustments are made, we would come back in again with our hip curve ruler and just make sure that our outside lines of the pattern piece continue to hold that same similar shape as to the original pattern piece as when we got it. That's a mouthful. So if you have questions, make sure you leave those in the comments and questions below, and I'll be glad to recover or go over that as needed. Again, I'm not going to make hip or waistline adjustments, but if I were, this is how I would do it. Just to see an illustration of that, you would have a line parallel with that grain line that you would either extend out or decrease by folding to adjust for hips. if you were adjusting up top along the waist, you would do something very similar. You would either pull that out to adjust the waistband or fold it over, as shown here, to make it smaller. Okay, so we are zipping right along, my dears. And one thing I do want to know, lastly, with the waistband and any kind of hip measurement adjustments, you can use your pants adjustments chart and look at how far the hip depth is for you, and make sure that you're measuring your piece coming down from the waistline to make sure that that hip depth measurement is wide enough as you want it. Make sure it hits that point of the hip depth. So again, that's a mouthful, and if you have questions, make sure and ask them below, and I'll be happy to answer them. But good job. We've covered everything about making the crotch lengthening or shortening adjustments. We've covered everything about making the pants leg increasing or shortening adjustments. We talked about using a curved ruler to redraw the integrity of those lines before you cut. Yeah, so good job, you all. We've gone over all of those major adjustments. Next time we'll talk about crotch wedges, and that's when we start to come in and make adjustments for if we have a protruding rear or a protruding belly. We're not just usually straight up and down. So we want to make sure that we adjust our pattern to fit our unique body types and styles. And we'll talk about how to do that next time. So thanks so much for joining me, and we'll continue to make our pajamas together and learn about pants patterns and adjustments as we go. Yay! Thank you.